The world views Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as a representation of poise, a woman whose poise under duress appears to have been practiced by fate. However, the foundation underlying her well-known grin and royal stance was created by her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, who never sought attention but instead contributed to its weight. Their narrative, which is frequently condensed into background footnotes, shows something kinder and more nuanced, a regular couple dealing with the tremendous ramifications of their daughter's life. Their journey's tragedy isn't controversy or dramatic loss, but rather the silent pain of seeing normalcy erode as celebrity redefines what family means. Growing up in a small house in Southall, Western London, Carol Goldsmith had aspirations far beyond its boundaries. Determination was instilled in her by her mother, a homemaker, and father, a painter and decorator. Early on, Carol discovered that warmth and a strong work ethic might transform obstacles into opportunities. She was resourceful, inquisitive, and ready for independence by the time she was in her 20s. She was a young woman with a plan in a time when few plans involved starting her own business. Then came Michael Middleton, a Leeds-born aviation enthusiast with a cool voice, a dry sense of humor, and a family discreetly associated with small gentry. Their initial meetings at British Airways, where they were both employed, she as a flight attendant and he in ground operations, felt more like a partnership formed by chance shift changes and a mutual interest in the globe than a love affair. In essence, they were equals constrained by practicalities. Young couples juggling ambition and employment in the late 1970s found it difficult, but the Middleton synergy soon became their strength. Friends remember that they were planners rather than noisy dreamers. There was little publicity surrounding their 1980 wedding, just sincere toasts and humble, now yellowed photos. They moved into a modest house close to Reading and focused on patience rather than pretense in their family life. Catherine, Pippa, and James were the next three children. They were raised by the Middletons using a combination of contemporary encouragement and traditional English reserve. When money permitted, the kids attended better schools after initially attending local ones. Carol's entrepreneurial spirit would not be quenched, and in 1987 she started a tiny business called Party Pieces out of sheer irritation at not being able to buy high-quality birthday party supplies for her own kids. The family's main source of income would be that small mail-order firm. Built on a kitchen table, Party Pieces became one of the first lifestyle businesses in the United Kingdom through catalogs and, later, internet sales. Michael was in charge of finance and logistics, while Carol was in charge of products and marketing. The company brought them both comfort and prominence. Nevertheless, neighbors recall them as modest, Carol juggling calls while stirring dinner, Michael in his garden. Catherine flourished academically and socially at Marlborough College, which was made possible by the company's eventual success. Nobody could have predicted how that education would put her in line with monarchy. The solid family life of the Middletons unintentionally laid the stage for history when Catherine met Prince William at St. Andrews University. Most parents find it exciting, even nerve-wracking, to watch their daughter fall in love. For the Middletons, it gradually became a worldwide show. The British press started analyzing people's histories, wealth, speech patterns, and even shopping lists because they were ravenous for every picture or rumor. Her upbringing was viewed as a cultural analysis by the same populace that quickly came to love their daughter as the future queen. Journalists called Carol a pushy mum, but as Catherine showed that she was resilient, they changed the term to a compliment. As always taciturn, Michael retreated even more from the spotlight, favoring quiet over show. Privacy became the most valuable resource for two individuals who had centered their business on happy times. They repeatedly had to deal with the conflict between incursion and pride. Intrusion because every family moment ran the risk of being misunderstood, pride because their daughter had found love and purpose in the monarchy. Helicopters once hovered close to Bucklebury, and cameras appeared at their village. They were taught to protect speech in the same manner that others protect money. Even if they were pleasant, invitations to royal functions came with a hidden price, an end to obscurity. But what endures most poignantly through each year of examination is their calm perseverance. The loss of the luxury of being regular parents is exactly where the tragedy resides. The strength of the couple lies in their differences. Carol is vivacious, enterprising, and socially astute, while Michael is steady, modest, and a little bashful. Like the two sides of their daughter's public image, they counterbalance each other. Their marriage survived because they overcame adversity together, not because life spared them. Family meals occasionally served as board meetings, and Party Pieces withstood recessions and retail disruptions. Decades later, the company failed during the epidemic, but they handled it with stoic reality and never indulged victimization. However, the toll aging in public and the obvious strain of attempting to safeguard a daughter whose every move became a global commentary was evident to onlookers. The Middleton stoicism inspires sympathy even in victory. They are sad in the human sense of witnessing simplicity fade away rather than in the theatrical sense, as they have not fallen from grandeur. Their children's birthdays became global discussion points, and their village walks turned into security-monitored excursions. Tabloids used what was formerly private tenderness as archival material. It is ironic for those who founded a business that specializes in parties to discover that celebrity might stifle enthusiasm for the same thing they marketed. Celebration. The family's close friends, especially Michael, maintain that they have kept their humor under control. He is the type of father who will whisper a jest to reassure anxious family members, even in the face of royal formality. Carol ensures that visitors feel at home even in opulent settings by using hospitality to combat anxiety. They exemplify ordinary as revolt, a quality that is frequently lost in prominent circles. However, the emotional cost is evident. Worry is a part of parenting, and it is greatly amplified when raising the future queen. The Middletons have seen public discourse change from awe-inspiring romance to unrelenting scrutiny, from cheers to conjecture. Whether they are fair or not, every headline touches their own reflection. Elevation isolates both the crowned and the kin, which is the harsh contradiction of contemporary royalty. Their daughter stands for the continuation of an institution, while her parents symbolize a vanishing, simple, and intimate form of family life. The distance between Bucklebury and Buckingham is a measure of emotional deterioration more than just geography. Although they are still very close to their daughter, in-person reunions now require coordinating security personnel and reporters who are drawn in by fleeting glances. For them, tragedy entails living under the shadow of love, which is so great that it overshadows spontaneity. Nevertheless, their tenacity, a refusal to allow the glare to distort affection, is courageous. Michael continues to care for his garden in spite of everything, and Carol continues to organize parties with joyful care. Even if they are aware that those lessons might be the most radical gift of all for royalty, they nonetheless remind their grandchildren of the pleasures of regular life. Permission to halt is rarely granted by public attention, and for Carol and Michael Middleton, that unrelenting pace gradually redrawn their boundaries. The ring on Catherine's finger also surrounded the Windsor family when she married into it, tying their lives to an organization that values tradition and prominence. While most parents enjoy their empty nest years, the Middletons were constantly in the news for their investments, gardening decisions, and ceremonial facial expressions. Such fame seeps in until everything familiar is viewed through a lens rather than announcing itself with sirens. A Bucklebury became a paradox in the early years following the wedding, safe but vulnerable. Loyal discretion was offered by their native village, longtime neighbors closed ranks and saw press interest as unwanted weather. At the same time, however, news vehicles with satellite dishes tilting awkwardly under hedges started to appear on small alleys. Reporters went back to Catherine's parents' home in hopes of getting a quote or a sight when her pregnancy made headlines. Silence was Michael and Carol's most effective defense. They discovered what every royal family eventually learns: discretion is armor, not simply manners. Finding meaning in exposure was the next step in the transformation process, if the first was learning to live with it. Once a modest enterprise that persuaded innumerable parents that handmade touches could take the place of luxury, Carol's company, Party Pieces, had stood for joyful inventiveness. However, the same joy was questioned when their daughter was made the Duchess of Cambridge. While supporters viewed her triumph as a symbol of contemporary capitalism, critics scrutinized each advertisement for any hint of royal affiliation. For years, the Middletons walked that tightrope, proud but wary, adamant that their brand was characterized by merit rather than monarchy. Outside comments portrayed the company's eventual administration due to economic difficulties as a failure, ignoring the decades of hard work that had led up to that point. For Carol, the closing signified the end of a chapter in her life, the family business that paid for her kids' education and instilled resiliency in everyone who worked with them. She refused to let resentment define her later years, though, and emotional grief remained private. Her argument that life moves forward, not upward, is remembered by friends as a subdued protest against the idea that each chapter must surpass the one before it. Michael talked about his stoic outlook and his sense of balance, which are based more on rhythm than ambition, careful gardening, frequent walks, and well-brewed tea. Collectively, they created everyday existence as a silent protest against extravagance. They embodied the England of everyday comforts, such as charity raffles, village celebrations, and backyard picnics, even after their daughter made it to the actual palaces. As if modesty were their brand strategy, observers frequently misinterpret that simplicity is performance. The reality is more personal. Their parenting was first governed by the same innate sense of seclusion. The Middletons created a humorous and predictable home while Catherine and her younger siblings were young. Tasks were completed before playtime, laughter was welcomed, and constructive criticism was given. Rather than being romantic, their love manifested itself in regularity. They are currently sustained by the same pattern. George, Charlotte, and Louis, their grandchildren, are aware that at Grandma Carol's, shoes are left at the door and that adventures start once the vegetables are consumed. These are customs rather than laws, and within the royal framework, they convey a hallowed value, typical childhood, but hidden beneath the giggles of visiting grandchildren is the emotional toll that few outsiders notice. Every birthday or holiday must be scheduled in accordance with media expectations and national obligations. The logistics must have had a melancholy tone, with coordination planners slicing off the joy that was formerly saved for dignitaries. The term, the tragedy of Kate Middleton's parents, has subtle significance here. Tragedy as distance, the gradual separation from spontaneity, rather than tragedy as disaster. They must remain still as the world revolves around their daughter in order to fulfill their function as anchors. They live in a constant state of compromise between protocol and privacy, neither entirely joining nor totally retreating. Carol's flexibility relieves that pressure. Even in interviews conducted years before her daughter's marriage, she frequently emphasized the value of being hands-on. Although this quality was praised, it ultimately presented difficulties. Royal grandparenthood follows an even more public schedule than royal motherhood. Instead of just texting, palace liaisons may be needed to plan a weekend visit. Nevertheless, she perseveres, exhibiting pragmatic affection, bringing food, crafts, and the implicit message that despite protocol, humanity still exists. Any stiffness is countered by Michael's soft humor. His lifted eyebrow can calm anxiety, according to guests who characterize him as the quiet audience. It's no accident that he is the source of Catherine's ease with public speaking and mild self-deprecation. The couple finds dignity through such beats. It takes mutual trust and a balanced viewpoint to maintain humility in the presence of power. The story of survival via cooperation is told by that union, which is evident in every picture, his soft stance slightly facing her, her watchful lean toward him. Society upholds an emotional democracy, equal voices, equal endurance, even as it debates privilege or class. Though their actuality is more subdued, the public narrative occasionally incorporates them into more expansive royal tales as examples of modernity and as representations of stable families. They are aware that being a part of the monarchy's circle will inevitably skew the motivations attributed to them. They are no longer concerned because of that awareness. They continue to focus on the little things, like family well-being, staff courtesy, and seasonal changes in their rose beds. They may be insignificant, but they are also self-preservation actions. Because control over the present becomes your sole remaining agency when your existence is forever set against the backdrop of history, that quiet commitment arouses a sense of protection in spectators throughout Britain. The Middletons serve as a reminder that exposure and decency may coexist. Their narrative strikes a chord because it substitutes constancy for spectacle. When tabloids are looking for drama, they provide decorum. When rumors get more intense, they provide candidness without commentary. The paradox is that their effect is increased by their constraint. They gain respect that is only given to those who are truly private by not pursuing fame. Their story is inevitably laced with melancholy. They are living proof that fairy tales cost someone their everyday tranquility. However, grace also exists. They are now protected by the same humility that kept Catherine safe on her climb. Instead of collapsing, they turned criticism into a lesson on how to maintain authenticity in the face of performance expectations and how to withstand attention without feeding it. They became reluctant players in the worldwide infatuation. Their features reappear on the front pages every few years: a christening portrait, a coronation pew, or the Jubilee balcony. Then they disappear once more, slipping back into the undulating silence of Bucklebury. Their emotional existence is reflected in that cycle of appearance and absence. For tranquility, they submerge, and for duty, they surface. And every time they reappear, the world is amazed by their poise and questions how two individuals from such humble backgrounds can exhibit composure more effectively than others who have received formal training. Their real story: afternoon tea with grandchildren, garden laughter that never goes out of style, and resiliency wrapped in routine breathes in the silence between headlines. If melancholy looms over them, it's not hopelessness but rather longing for the seclusion they used to take for granted. However, their grace in living without it turns that sorrow into a legacy. Years go by. These days, new algorithms and distractions take the place of headlines more quickly, but the Middletons are still relevant because they don't strive for it. Their lives still proceed according to the weather, even as the digital world advances: garden seasons, family get-togethers, and moments that don't make headlines. If tragedy used to be associated with the loss of privacy, it has since evolved into acceptance. Carol and Michael Middleton have learned to live comfortably without anonymity, but they are unable to regain it. Observers would characterize their household's rhythm as English domestic poetry. A calm reading period, morning tea, and then the hustle and bustle of little tasks. Rather than serving as a shrine, their home serves as a compass that points them back to their more grounded roots. It is replete with reminders of simpler decades, such as black and white family pictures and cuttings from the original Party Pieces catalogs. The hum of worry is replaced by laughing when grandchildren come to visit. In those few moments, the outer world seems far away as Catherine's children run through hallways with the same carefree enthusiasm their mother always possessed. The Middletons are the best example of how privacy does not imply seclusion but rather the freedom to be regular with those you care about. Sometimes progress can be seen in small ways, such when Carol tends to a flower bed while a reporter's car drives by unseen, or when Michael smiles at a neighbor at the village post office. By declining to perform, they are taking back their position. Although the ownership of their celebrity has changed, it still exists. It is now theirs, subtly defined by what they do not disclose, rather than belonging to strangers who write headlines. That self-control may seem easy, but it takes courage in a society where giving too much is valued. For a new age, they have reinterpreted dignity as thoughtful silence rather than rigidity. Catherine frequently attributes her capacity to serve in public while raising a small family to her parents' stability. Their philosophies: stability, daily connectedness, and minor rituals that safeguard identity, appear subtly in lectures about mental health and early childhood. The fingerprints of Carol and Michael Middleton are present in those values. Just by demonstrating the value of parental grounding, they have impacted a national dialogue without ever getting involved in politics. The kitchen table in Buckleberry, where laughter used to ease everyday stress, is directly linked to their daughter's elegance at international events. From a broader perspective, their narrative reflects the more subdued problems of many parents, witnessing their children enter worlds they are unable to follow and experiencing a mixture of pride and loneliness. On a public platform, the Middletons simply happen to embody that dichotomy. Their tenacity has universal appeal. Viewers witness love distilled through circumstance when they see them at royal occasions, dressed immaculately yet their gaze affectionately focused on their daughter. Cameras may capture posture. The calmness of the posture is explained by experience. The thunder of fame has subsided, but there are still murmurs about their true feelings and whether they will ever regret the life that altered theirs. Their response, which they gave in person rather than during interviews, is evident. They arrive. Weddings, christenings, coronations, they come and go as needed. Self-erasure is a language of love in and of itself. They had to accept life on the dimmer margins of the frame in order to preserve Catherine's ability to shine. It appears easy until you realize how few people do it well. A philosophy of coexistence with pressure can be found within those boundaries. They just don't want to emphasize pain, they don't act as though it doesn't exist. Even Party Pieces' ending is a metaphor. Some achievements have their expiration dates, and it's better to let go than to hold on. Now, they take pride in witnessing Catherine's dedication to service mirror their own tenacity. That mirror is sufficient reward for them. They don't require public validation or rewritten headlines to clear up misunderstandings. The silent survival of self-respect is their triumph. They seem happy in this new phase of their lives as retirees who are still lighted by royal proximity. They occasionally travel, go to church, and entertain guests in their garden. She organizes family get-togethers while he goes fishing. Neighbors frequently deliberately park their cars to maintain calm when photographers arrive. This simple gesture of community love conveys a lot about how they are seen in the area. The couple who wave from the same walking route regardless of who may be observing are regarded by Buckleberry as its most well-known yet most commonplace citizens. Inevitably, love grows stronger with time. What used to feel like an invasion now feels like an acknowledgement of perseverance. These days, nicer commentators refer to them as the monarchy's invisible backbone. They gently object to this acclaim as they were never intended to support institutions, only families. However, despite its inadvertent nature, the description is accurate. At times when controversy or exhaustion threatened the royal household's reputation, they bolstered it by exhibiting constant civility. Their capacity to authentically embody family values became a symbol of comfort for a whole country looking for stability in the face of unrest. Even now, Michael's comedy always comes as a surprise. He used memories from his early British Airways days, the misplaced luggage that reunited couples, the security canines that slept through inspections, to defuse tense conversations during charity events. Alongside him, Carol chuckles and occasionally gives him a faux reprimand by shaking her head. Decades of companionship have solidified into a cadence of practiced comfort in their interactions. Younger viewers see them as models of a traditional marital harmony that is uncommon in media portrayals. Steadfastness becomes fashionable because of them. They also provide for times of contemplation regarding fragility as retirement becomes more profound. Friends observe that they occasionally refer to their lives in terms of seasons: the spring party, the summer royal, and now, as Michael puts it, the quiet harvest. Each expression conveys thankfulness rather than sorrow. The story of tragedy fades into the understanding that satisfaction and grief can coexist and that the joy of one world does not diminish the joy of another. Carol told one acquaintance, "We are proud and peaceful," which could have been the chapter's epitaph. In the end, the Middletons' impact goes beyond their royal ties. They are an excellent example of how resiliency can survive attention. Every age honors crowns and rituals, but the fabric underlying is maintained by the more subdued individuals, parents, mentors, and regular steadiness builders. Their tale challenges us to consider what the modern world all too frequently overlooks: the grace of balance is greater than the grandeur of fame. Therefore, even though their saga's title refers to tragedy, the truth changes the meaning of the word. The sweet melancholy of common people enshrined in myth is the tragedy, not the end. However, their humanity has never wavered inside that narrative. They are still the same people who started a business out of paper plates and optimism, who instilled a sense of poise in their kids, and who now tenderly care for a burgeoning branch of the royal line. If they are unhappy, it is only the echo of love that has been stretched farther than any family could have imagined. The sound of perseverance, recalled laughter, and dignity that never learned how to perform can all be found in that echo. The world may go to castles for grandeur, but sometimes the greatest bravery is found in a little Berkshire kitchen where two parents toast to the life they created and the tranquility they restored while sipping evening tea in private.